morning, our fellow Micronesians. Welcome to the studio, Michael San Nicolas, our former congressman and member of the legislature. Good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Johnnie Rosario.
It is Thursday, the 27th of July, 2023. Today would have been the deadline to apply for FEMA, but I think it was extended to tomorrow. Was it tomorrow?
I didn't get the memo.
Just go today. Just, never mind that they extend. Don't be a procrastinator.
I passed by the JMG site.
What is JMG?
Juan M. Guerrero, the school in Harmon, jam-packed. Jam-packed.
So everyone's a procrastinator.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're not going to talk about that today. But you know what? You should. If you haven't applied for FEMA yet, you should go and apply for FEMA. Even if you don't think that you qualify, their advice to everyone is go apply, and they'll talk you through it. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to talk to Congressman Michael San Nicolas about the National Defense Authorization Act, which passed the House of Representatives earlier this month, and it's Section 366 and what it can mean for the people of Guam, the CNMI, Greater Micronesia, and our allies around this region, not just for our economic vibrancy in the next few years, but also for our security. And an amendment that made it into the House version of the NDAA that is disturbing, to state the least. We'll bring you the crime report, and we have a bunch of birthdays and unfortunately a death announcement and a 5th-year death anniversary, tax refunds news, and there's something else that I can't remember that's not on my piece of paper right now. But we're going to cut to a commercial break so that when we come back, we'll be able to talk with Congressman San Nicolas about this pretty big news. Stick with us. This segment of the show brought to you by 76 Circle K and their leaderboard for today. Never look down on anybody unless you are helping them up. Sage advice. Sage advice. Something I had to learn the hard way.
I've always been at the bottom. So
I've been on both sides of this, actually.
Yeah. I've always been the one needing help, reaching out for help. Like, at the time, I didn't think I needed the help. But in reality, I was. So
that makes sense.
In this stage of my life, I'm able to turn around and pick somebody up.
Yeah. And I'm no longer like, what?
No, like, and you got $1, and you're gonna get $1, and you're gonna get $1. Everybody gets $1.
These days, I'm like, I want to go to heaven. I'm going to be nice to you. I'm very sorry for what I said. Very sorry for what I did. I'm super sorry for what I thought in my head.
Yeah. Only if you knew.
Only if you knew. Congressman, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's been a while since you've been on our show.
It's been a minute, right?
Yeah.
How long was the last one? A couple months already?
Yeah. So what are you up to?
Everyone's asking me that. I'm taking it easy. I'm a recovering public servant, politician.
I'm sure everyone's asking you if you're going to run again, right?
We're getting a bit of that, yeah. I always just defer that to my boss, the missus. You know, you gotta ask the boss.
Okay, so in
So wait.
deferment to her, I'm not going to ask that question.
So recovering politician, recovering public servant, I mean, which means you probably suffer from PTSD.
Actually, I actually do. It's pretty bad. You know, just hard time sleeping, and then just just reconciling a lot of internal stuff of things that happened, things that were said or done, and just trying to get through it. Especially because it's just it was very traumatic for my family, my parents, my wife.
Everybody, it was
Yeah.
traumatic even for us.
Yeah. So yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we asked you on this show because we need your experience in the House of Representatives and working with and how things go through. And I'm sure, so you've seen our story, of course, about a Section 366 in the National Defense Authorization Act. You saw all of the evidence that we put in that this one section was not in the original version of the NDAA. It was placed in there by the HASC during markup, House Armed Services Committee during markup. Congressman Moylan's office has admitted that they not only supported it, but participated in the inclusion of that amendment. And what that amendment essentially says is that within 180 days of the passage of the NDAA, and by the way, it's not in the Senate version as of yet, the Secretary of Defense shall report to the Congress about the likelihood of moving training and testing facilities and programs under the Pacific Deterrence Initiative to the southeastern states of the United States. And so, states like Florida, West Virginia, Alabama,
Yeah.
Mississippi, these states that are heavily reliant on military spending, pork barrel legislation, basically what this is, right? But the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, and you're familiar with it, right? Because it was coming of age during your time in Congress. In March of this year, the president, through the secretary or through the military, submitted a budget request or a budget allocation that said over the next 5 fiscal years, fiscal year 24 through 28, they want to spend $34 billion in the Indo-Pacific region west of the international date line. So it's an exclusion of Hawaii for the most part. I suppose my first question is, because this Section 366, which now opens the floodgates for funding to southeastern states, wasn't in the original NDAA, how does that process work in Congress? How does Congress get an NDAA legislation, first of all, and then how do they work things in?
Okay, so just to kind of re-summarize, to make it a little clearer.
Yes, please.
The NDAA is the National Defense Authorization Act, and every year that bill has to pass because it funds the entire defense of the United States.
Okay.
It's really the only bill that ultimately gets passed every single year. There's always a bipartisan compromises. No one gets in the way of that. Politics hardly ever gets in the way of that. And so that's what is passing out of the Armed Services Committee, of which Congressman Moylan is now a member of. Yes. I was not on Armed Services. I was in Financial Services. He's brought Guam back into Armed Services. And so in the National Defense Authorization Act, that's where Guam gets all this money for the military. The military buildup, all this funding that comes in, and all the military spending that's happening here, all of that comes through the NDAA. One of the really big things that created opportunities for Guam as I was leaving the Congress was a program called the Pacific Deterrence Initiative.
Or PDI.
PDI. And what that basically is it's the U.S. government investing through the NDAA into the military posture here in the Pacific to try and counterbalance China.
Yes.
And it's, as you mentioned, $30+ billion, a huge investment, bigger even than the Marine relocation.
Yes.
By like 5 times. And so it's a lot of money that was going to pour into this area. What's at issue, and what you asked me to come and comment on, was new language that was put in after the original NDAA for this year was drafted. It was added in with the permission of Congressman Moylan to open up the flow of those dollars away from Guam and into other jurisdictions in the southeastern United States.
Which were not originally included. And the military is Indo-PACOM, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, which is the nation's largest and oldest combative command, right? That's where we're at.
That's our
right?
that's our zone. Yes.
That's our zone. They came out and they even said, essentially, we only asked for money to spend in the Indo-Pacific region west of the international date line. That's what we asked for, and that's because we need this to combat China. I'm summarizing what their statement to us was, but are you surprised that they would come out and in the midst of the NDAA, being in both the House or being in the Senate now, have such a definitive statement about what it is that they want?
Yes, and for two reasons. One is the southeastern United States is not under the operational apparatus of Indo-Pacific Command.
There's Southern Command, U.S. Southern Command, right?
It's an entirely different command structure. And so this money is supposed to go to training and the facilities for the Pacific deterrence to push back on China, to be managed by Indo-Pacific Command, because Indo-Pacific Command, Indo-PACOM as they're called, is responsible for the China deterrence.
Yes.
So now this money can go to a different command, and also the second major point is in a different region. All this training investment, it should be happening here because this is where the conflict has to be prepared for. You want to do it in the most immediate setting.
The weather,
the
all
currents, just. And so for this language to be added in, when you covered that story, I too was very surprised. As you mentioned, Indo-PACOM is of course surprised. I'm sure they're alarmed even, because it creates a whole new level of military bureaucracy to try and coordinate the training between two different commands for a single initiative.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of layers to this that really doesn't make any sense.
So this is not good.
This is very bad. Okay. It's very bad for defense. It's very bad for Guam. It basically diverts resources that would have come into Guam, that would have helped our economy away from Guam. And it impacts the command structure and the preparedness of the U.S. military with respect to China deterrence, which is a primary concern of us here because we want our armed forces to be as ready as possible. So for Delegate Moylan to be supporting that language it's a real negative for Guam, and it's a real negative for our security.
Why would a Guam congressman support something like this? What could we get? What could we possibly get in return for supporting something like this?
So, in Congress, right, we sometimes we do what's called horse trading, right? Like we'll take one on the chin, something that we're not necessarily happy with, if we can get help on something else
bigger.
Major. Yeah. When I looked at, because after we ran the story, I backtracked and I said, let me look at what doors at least opened with this, and I didn't see any. His amendments and his language that he's saying he got into the NDAA are, they're not bad, but they're certainly not significant enough to warrant that kind of a trade-off. I know that all of them are pretty much studies for this and studies for that. And even the timeline for his studies is different from the timeline of the 366 study.
Yes, which is 180 days. It's faster.
And that is very significant.
Okay.
That is significant because when the NDA passes, that means that mandate has to be met within 180 days, which is 6 months from passage of that language, which gives the Armed Services Committee enough time
for the next NDA
to put a next step into the next NDAA as a result of that language. So it very clearly indicates that they already have an agenda, and they're trying to situate the timeline to meet that agenda, and that agenda ultimately has to do with moving military investment away from Guam.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I sat back and I said, why would they do that, right? And, sometimes members either horse trade, but I didn't see any of that. And so sometimes two members decide they want to take a certain posture. We all know that the whole military buildup has two real sides. One is the activist conservation side, and the other is the economic pro-buildup group. And so I said, okay, well, maybe Jim's going activist. Maybe he's trying to push military out of Guam. But when I looked at some of the other stuff he was introducing, like he wants to dredge the port. That's very not activist. They're against that.
Yeah.
And then there's also language on the Senate side to not return Eagle Field, and so there's a lot of things happening that don't add up to either sides, and it's pretty alarming when Jim is on the Armed Services Committee, and there's no clear direction on the agenda. It's a lose-lose proposition for Guam when you add up all the sum of its parts, and I'm curious, and I wanted to ask you guys if you heard from them why.
Wait, before
why
we
they're doing
move
that.
on, before you answer that, I just have a question. So the funding, the ND, what I'm getting is that the funding, the $34 billion plus billion dollars for up until 2028 was a guaranteed Guam.
Not just Guam.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was guaranteed. They didn't have to add in anything or take anything in. It was done. Here's the bill, or here's what needs to be passed. It's done. It's ours.
It was guaranteed for Indo-Pacific Command,
Right.
which oversees the entire Pacific.
Yeah.
The primary districts under Indo-PACOM
Yeah.
is Hawaii, Sinai, Guam.
But west of the international date line cancels out Hawaii.
Right.
So it would have just been, in terms of U.S. jurisdictions, it would have just been Guam and
The
CNMI, which I wanted to get to actually. But it also would include Australia. If you look at the funding, the initial $9.1 billion for next fiscal year, there's a lot of stuff for Australia, Japan, Taiwan, Okinawa, and of course Guam and CNMI. And I do want to get to CNMI, which is, my brothers tell me that this really screwed CNMI more than it screwed Guam. But before we get to that, I wanted to answer your question about what the Congressman's office, the only thing the Congressman's office did say about the reason they supported this, aside from getting in the good graces of the HASC chairman, Mike Rogers from Alabama, is that there are things that can be done in Alabama that will be safer, that would not be as safe for people, for us to have on Guam. So my question is, Congressman, what could possibly be safer for Alabamians, military-wise, than for Guamanians? I don't understand that.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, right?
But it does say something. It does actually have a very clear secondary message, at least from my lens, and that is that if they already had that answer prepared, then that means that this was very deliberate, that their office is not accidentally letting this happen. It's a conscious, and they're trying to create a narrative to make it be okay.
Well, the Congressman's office did celebrate their participation in this amendment. They did.
So they're taking full ownership of
They
this?
took full ownership of this amendment, of participating in it, supporting it.
That's what's significant, because typically something of this magnitude, when you asked early on in the beginning of the programming, how do these things even come to pass? Something like this would not happen without the express permission of the impacted jurisdiction, especially if you're in the majority. So he's in the majority, he's a member of the committee, he had to have signed off on it. And so when you also mentioned too earlier that it's not in the Senate version, I don't think at this juncture it really matters, because if this was put in there by Chairman Rogers, this has what's called the chairman's mark.
Okay.
And that's basically congressional speak for this is staying. This is like one of his marked items. This is going to be in the final version.
So the Senate will just acquiesce to this.
Yeah, because when something has the chairman's mark, they basically know that that's not a debatable point.
And the chairman has this mark in some part because Guam gave it the okay.
Right. The chairman would not use his mark if the sitting member did not give it the green light. But again, and obviously he did. But the question is why? Why would Jim do that?
Do you think this is more an issue of someone being asleep at the wheel than earnestly knowing what he was doing?
It's possible, but I really would think that after that first snafu earlier on, when they tried to do the whole DoD reintegration of the schools, and that just blew up, I thought that Jim's office would be a lot more mindful of making making those kind of mistakes, and then when they already have their rationale lined up and they're taking ownership of it, you don't do that unless you consciously knew what you're doing. So this is obviously something that they wanted to do. As to why, if Jim didn't get anything out of it, I mean, he it could have happened at a staff level. You know, there could have been certain staff members that are doing this to curry favor with certain other committees. I mean, there's an internal politics.
Or with lobbyists.
Or with lobbyists.
Yeah.
There's an internal politics at that level where sometimes things are happening even without the member knowing, because certain staff are trying to ingratiate themselves with other offices because they're trying to feather their nest in case they want to move on to work somewhere else. So
That's
sometimes
amazing and disgusting at the same time.
Oh, trust me. You know, when a member finds out of those kind of things happening, it's a big deal, because you know, you're supposed to be on top of everything, and if something like that's happening and you don't know about it, that's a very, very big deal. That's grounds for termination.
Yeah.
You know, but so either Jim knows or Jim didn't know, but either way, he's responsible.
And he's not saying, by the way, that so
Didn't they say they're not answering any more of your questions?
They're not answering any follow-up questions on this. Yeah, and this is the reason that Jim Moylan's not on this show, asking or answering any of these questions. They're not going to answer any more of our follow-up questions about
Well, this is something that absolutely needs to be answered, because we're talking about $35 billion. And so, you know, when you talk about how Japan and Australia and etc., what's likely is because this is training money, you know how we have Cope North here on Guam? It's very likely that the federal government was going to subsidize trainings with these other countries and spend that training money.
Well, let me tell you. So after
Here.
we started researching this, after we sent questions to JRM, Joint Region Marianas, we got a call from the Marines here on Guam. They're like, hey, we want to tour you on our bases, and we got to ask questions. And I don't know if you guys are able to queue up that one interview, Eric Rosario, with Major Rosenfeld, where she was talking about the training, and we were inside that one live fire facility. But while you're looking for it, I'll explain. She absolutely talked about that, about how there are efficiencies created because of the training compound and the live firing range on the other side for our allies.
Right.
For this, they call it multinational training.
Right.
And so instead of the allies and the United States paying all of this money to send everyone to train over in California or in Texas or wherever it is, right? Or in Alabama, on the other side of the world.
Florida.
They just come here.
Right.
3 hours away, 4 hours away. And it creates so many operational efficiencies, and it saves a lot of money.
Right.
And so this was a big, big deal to the Marine Corps. And not to mention, of course, everything that you talked about, the insects, the climate, the trees.
The rebuilding, like let's say our airfield up there gets bombed. The guys know how to rebuild it within so many days, so we can start receiving. You know what I mean? Like this is where they practice.
Or more importantly, how to respond when those bombs are coming in.
Right.
You know, I mean, so there's a lot of reasons why this is. I mean,
how about this with his dredging of the port? With this, you know, we don't know where he's at. You know, like is someone pushing that? Like is someone pushing him for these things to happen? Like
it's not the governor or lieutenant governor. We got statements from both the governor and lieutenant governor, both saying that they did not get any forewarning from the congressman about this. They did not know about it. The lieutenant governor went a step further. He was like, he I don't know if you saw that statement where he gave caution to the congressman's office, like, hey, be careful, basically, of the sorts of deals that you make, because Congress is not, it's not a pretty place. You know, would you agree with that?
Oh, very much so. And I think also to the in your story that broke this, the Armed Services Committee of the Chamber also is not driving this. They didn't know about this either.
They didn't know about it. They didn't even know about the 30. And that's another question. But let's hold that question. I wanted to play this piece from Major Rosenfeld, but just remind me the Armed Forces Committee and their surprise. But are we ready to roll it now? Okay, go ahead.
a live round, it takes your brain to a different level. Like when you're shooting with simulation, it's a little bit easier to say, oh, I should pull the trigger, I shouldn't pull the trigger, because at the end of the day, it's not going to do anything. In an environment like this, it's more critical, because you deciding to pull that trigger, it's either an armed combatant, could be a family, could be an elderly person sitting in a chair, so it feels that much more real. And all of this is just, it's training for the right tactics and procedures, and also training the mind to go through all of those things quicker, because the more you rehearse, the quicker your mind is working, and the more your mind can identify what's right, what's wrong, and what are the consequences if I do something or I don't do something.
How critical is it for not just a facility like this, but basically for the training, this entire training facility for the Indo-PACOM theater to be in this region?
You know, I think anytime you can have an organized training location that is big enough to provide training to regimental size units, it makes a huge difference, because the whole training atmosphere here in Guam is set up to be the individual training. So we'll go to the live fire training range, where that's just individuals honing their basic weapons, their weapon skills. So every Marine or rifleman, that's where we do our training, because precision is everything. You can't come to a location like this if you don't know how to hit your target down there. So then this elevates the training a little bit, so you can do it as a unit. And you can do it together at the mount facility with, you know, the squads, the platoons next to you as an integrated training. So you'll see the individual training at the live fire training range, and then you elevate it here where you're working in tandem with those people next to you. And then you asked about allies and partners. So individual, then you learn how to operate with that Marine to your left and your right. You learn to operate with bigger units as a Marine Corps. And then you bring in your allies and partners, or joint services, Army, Air Force, and then you can integrate it all here. So it's huge. It's incredibly important for the individuals who are going to be trained, as well as the units that are going to be trained here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what we like to call it muscle memory, you know, so what the Major was talking about, when you're coming into a room and having to make a split decision, rules of engagement come into play, and that's what you're learning in here, is when, you know, how quick you have to make that decision and making the right decision. And we're filming it, right? We're recording it, so we can play it back. Whether it's in here or over there with simunitions, we still can film it and show them what they're doing right and wrong before they come in here.
So you heard it right there. Major Rosenfeld did not mince any words about how critical these training facilities are here, and how this affects our allies in this region, and in this deterrence against China. That's what matters, right? We have to find it, but there was a portion, I think we were at the live firing range, right, Eric? We were at the live firing range, and I asked, because if you go there, have you been there?
Multiple times, yes.
There's a lot of green everywhere. There's only a few places in that entire compound where they do the live firing range, right? And so there were all these other areas that said, hey, Major, is this something, do you guys ever want to expand and have like more ranges, like with all of this extra space that's here? And she was pretty careful about it, but her response is kind of telling. She goes, well, you know, that would require another environmental impact statement or environmental assessment. But what I can tell you, I'm paraphrasing here, but what I can tell you is that when this opens, it's going to schedule up pretty fast. It's going to fill up. The calendar is going to fill up. And so, which told me, yeah, you know, they do need more facilities in order to do what it is that they need to do over the next several decades to keep us and the rest of the nation and our allies safe from an emerging aggression from China. I just wanted to play that just to show you just how clear what did you get out of that?
I mean, it was, like you mentioned, it was clear. And it's something I've always understood from the get-go, is that, and it's almost a no-brainer, right? if you're training in the environment in which you're likely going to have to react and respond, then when the time comes to react and respond, you're going to be most ready if you've trained in that environment. I played basketball in high school, everyone knows you have home court advantage is where you just practice regularly. And so that's why this whole amendment is such a big deal, because there's so many implications in terms of readiness. There's implications in terms of command, and that's all federal. And then there's implications on the local side of, here we are on the front lines, likely to take all the risk. How prepared are they going to be to protect us in real time with real live experiences? And then there's the economic side of it. If we're going to face all this risk, at least can we get the trainings to happen here too, so that there's a lot of spending going on, jobs, money flowing through the economy. All those checkpoints on why the buildup was supposed to be good for Guam is now going out the window, because we're going to try and open the door to move it to Alabama. That's bad for Guam, very bad for Guam.
And then, so if part of this even $1 taken out of that $34 billion from this region is a dollar that could have been spent on something on Guam. For example, although it's not high up on the whole national security thing, it is important to the family economy of this island, bringing back the ship repair facility, or constructing more housing on base so that it's not so expensive for people to rent or buy homes, for local people to rent or buy homes here, because military families are no longer flooding the market. Just those sorts of things to consider when you talk about moving money away from this region, right? And I wanted to, you didn't need to remind me, I remembered, the Armed Forces Committee, when we interviewed them, they were surprised. And the reason I wanted to bring up their surprise is because I remember when you were in Congress, as soon as something, even before it was passed by Financial Services or House Armed Services, whatever, you were like, hey, we're going to get this.
Yeah,
or like,
heads up Guam.
Yeah, heads up Guam, where this is something that may be coming down the pike. And even if it didn't materialize, at least he told us what was happening. This PDI budget by the president and by the military was presented in March 23, 2023, if I'm not mistaken. This Armed Forces nobody knew about this $34 billion on Guam until we broke the story. What is that about it? Why didn't our congressman's office tell us and start celebrating this fact back in March of 2023?
I don't know. That's definitely something, especially if you're on the committee and you're dialed in with the committee, they would have definitely let you know. Unless they pulled you into a back room at the onset and said, hey, this is coming along, but this is a direction the chairman wants to take it, and you said yes. That's a possibility.
Yeah, let's put you on this Armed Forces Committee because we need you to stamp it okay.
Possibly.
Right?
Those are all possibilities.
That's crazy.
Well, bottom line is,
Because who's the boss?
as
the
the
people
member-
of Guam, or
And maybe Khalili said no.
He's not on the committee.
I'm saying they didn't put him because he said no.
Oh, yeah, I see. Which, and I do want to get to the CNMI discussion, because I think it's
Maybe, but I'm
critical.
just speculating because,
Well, but you do bring up a very fair point, Johnnie, and that is that, Khalili's very senior, 16, 18 years now in there,
Yeah.
a long time. But no matter how senior you are, when you're on the committee, you have a certain level of power
Yeah.
and insight and command and control. And so, and that's what makes all of this unfolding so significant, and for Jim to be refusing to answer questions on it is so impactful, because when you're on that committee, you are in a position to be able to shut those kind of things down if they're bad for our district. And he needs to be very clear as to why they're letting this thing go, why this is happening, because this is, for all the reasons we've discussed, this is an absolute lose-lose proposition for Guam.
So Khalili, he's not on the committee.
Right.
He's not on House Armed Services. He caucuses with the Democrats. So, 2 strikes against him already. Basically, if something good were to happen for the CNMI, Guam should have been the one to help, because Guam is on the committee. Guam gave, essentially, its stamp of approval to moving funds out of
The
this
region.
area
Right.
and into the southeastern states. And I hope you're wrong. about that chairman's mark, and I hope that this does not see the light of day in the Senate version or in reconciliation. But let's say this does go through with Guam's stamp of approval and everything. I've been reading up on some stuff. We'll put out a story as well, especially stuff from the Marine Corps Academy, or the Marine Corps University. Some papers that have been written by people in the know, and about they correlate the casino thing that happened in Saipan with an infiltration by the Communist Party of China in order to help to lose support for any sort of buildup in Saipan and Tinian, which is critical to not just the Marines, but the rest of the armed forces. And so what I wonder, because of that correlation to China, whether as part of this PDI over the next 5 years, there was supposed to be some sort of major investment into the CNMI that now can be in jeopardy because resources are being moved over to will be moved over to southeastern United States after this study and from the next NDA forward. Have you heard, when you were in Congress, had you heard of any, significant investments into the CNMI, and what do you think about all this?
Well, I know that CNMI does have, with the marine relocation, a significant investment being made. I know Tinian is one of the areas that were looked at in order to create a readiness environment for training, etc., on the marine relocation side. But because they were part and parcel to that whole move, any of these PDI funds would absolutely have flowed towards CNMI as well. So yeah, anything that's redirecting money away from this region and into those southeastern United States would also be redirecting dollars away from CNMI. As to specific projects, I couldn't comment to those, even if I was privy to them.
Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily divulge what would be in a development pipeline,
okay,
unless the military is the one that puts out that kind of a press release. But as far as following the dollars, absolutely diverting funds away from this region will also divert funds away from the CNMI.
Has Congressman Kilili commented on this issue?
We have spoken, and he has provided information, and his comments are minimal. And I think you guys would understand why, right? Because of how sensitive things are. He's not in the party. Doesn't caucus with the party in power, and he needs to get things done for the CNMI. He needs to play nice.
Right.
Okay, so once it passes the Senate, and does it get to the president?
Yeah.
Can the president line that out?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
Because it's not an appropriation, right? It's a study. So I guess he could line item.
The president doesn't do that with the NDAA. There's just certain protocols that everyone kind of follows with that particular piece of legislation.
Alabama or those people didn't follow the protocol. Neither did Jim.
Well, they probably did when they asked him, and he said yes. See, that's why.
I can't believe I voted for this guy.
That's why the members' input and stamp of approval is so critical, particularly in this bill, because everybody tries to line it up as best as possible to make it sail as smoothly as it can. So the House will pass their version, the Senate will pass theirs, they'll reconcile the differences. Those differences usually center around amendments that other members have made. There's dozens of amendments because everyone's trying to piggyback on this must-pass bill. But bones of the chairman's mark, very unlikely to change.
Is there anything Guam can do to be like, look, we didn't know what Jim Moylan was doing, but we're against this? Would it make a difference if the governor wrote to the Senate, or the heads of both parties of Guam, or the speaker of the legislature, some sort of Team Guam approach that said, we don't agree with what Jim Moylan did? He didn't even tell us that he did this.
It could help. Getting that to the Senate will probably be the best avenue, because that's a Democrat Senate, and the Democrat senator may be more responsive, especially if it's a coordinated Democrat response. It could also be helpful if the armed services of the chamber send something similar. because when you have a chamber and Democrats kind of singing the same song, it really gets the attention, because normally those two groups don't work in tandem.
Okay.
So yeah, if they did do that, it could be very helpful. If the legislature passed a resolution not supporting 366 and if it was bipartisan,
Okay.
and they sent that off to the Senate, that could be helpful. And all those things would need to come together, because it needs to be. I can't emphasize this enough, because it was already made explicitly clear by the Guam member, by Jim Moylan, that he supports this. And because this is an amendment from the chairman himself, even the Senate chair will be very, very hesitant to go against that, because then it's basically chairman versus chairman. And you only throw that gauntlet down when it's a fight that you really want to have, and Guam is not that arena, in terms of chairman versus chairman fighting things out. So
Will the
it would
military
need to
come
be a
up-
very strong Team Guam approach.
Would the military come out a little more aggressively? I mean, they're direct in their response that they just wanted the funding for Indo-Pacific region, but would they come out and say, look, this is irresponsible, this is pork barrel?
It's delicate, because Indo-PACOM wants the money, and then the command that oversees Alabama, of course, will be more than happy to receive it as well.
I see.
And then you don't want infighting in your own armed services branches. They usually will say, they'll express their views, but they'll say they're leaving it to the politicians.
I see.
Yeah.
So if there's any hope for this, there just needs to be a coordinated Team Guam approach.
Well, yeah, and also too, the biggest help would be if Congressman Moylan just came straight out and very publicly stated that he does not support this.
Takes it back.
Yes, in reviewing it, he's hoping that the chairman can reconsider. The problem is that that's just.
He wouldn't.
Well, it's just really bad politics, because after that you piss off the chairman, and then what do you do? So I mean, and that's why I don't understand why they took things in this direction to begin with. It's bad on so many levels, not just in terms of what the amendment implicates, but what the reversal of that amendment will implicate in the future. I mean, it's just really toxic.
Very good, Jim. 6 months in. At
Good
least
job.
At
Good
least
job.
use some lube,
Well,
dude.
just in all fairness, right? I mean, when we read that sign from '76 in the beginning about lift a hand up or
Yeah.
whatever, there's a number of things that everyone can be a critic, right? And so I want the people of Guam to kind of take this information and not necessarily look at it as a criticism of any individual. Just let's all just evaluate this for the policy that it is, the bad policy that it is, and then go from there. Because I was in that boat, where it felt like everything that you were doing was just getting slammed, even if it was really good for Guam. So as much as Jim does have to take ownership of it, if we instead just focus on the policy concern that it is, I think that would be the best way for us to just help him, help us, and help himself.
Yeah, well.
Thank you so much for your insight on this. Very valuable. Can you stick around for the remainder of our show?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just chat it out about two magistrates' reports.
Yeah.
I think one or more of them is funny. And and we'll do our birthday stuff, death announcement, tax refunds. We can talk about tax refunds. And a win for Guam in Sacramento against Nevada by our boys who are out there for the Cal Ripken tournament baseball. Johnnie had to tell me it was baseball. I didn't.
Yeah. 6 to 5.
I was
Yeah.
not sure.
Ripken's baseball.
I know nothing about
Yeah.
sports. I didn't even know that jiu-jitsu is like the same thing as judo until like 3 days ago or something like that.
Jiu-jitsu is the same thing as judo?
Right? I didn't
it's
know
got
that.
to be different. It's different. It's a different martial art.
Eric, weren't you the one who told me that jiu-jitsu
No,
and judo
that
are
was
the same
Zach.
thing?
I'll throw
Zach?
Zach under the bus. That was Zach.
Zach is saying no.
He looks the same.
You guys are liars, man. All right, when we come back from this I don't think it's a short commercial break. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to bring you the crime reports, and Congressman San Nicolas is going to stick with us as we go through this. So it should be even more exciting than it normally is. Stick with us. Thank you.
I feel that this environment is for anybody that wants to try something new, whether it is CrossFit or powerlifting. We offer a safe space for someone who's never been athletically inclined to try something that they've never done before.
Hi, welcome back.
This segment, sorry, I've already got to all in my mouth. This segment of the show is brought to you by Winchell's, which I didn't know until today has arroz and it's really good. They have the garlic flakes on top.
Wow.
I'm almost certain there's MSG in here because it's really good.
So good.
We
And
just
you
had the
guys-
clam chowder 2 nights ago.
We got you clam chowder. That's clam chowder right there.
Thank
Yes, yes, that's clam
And
chowder.
that's your coffee, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a guest on this show. We can't pay you like a lot of money, but we can give you clam chowder
dude.
and 76 coffee.
That's winning right there.
We had 2 magistrates reports today. I think they're both drugs, right?
One's family violence with drugs, and then one's theft by receiving and possession.
So they're both
let's,
drug-related.
yeah, both of them.
Again, we don't have mugshots because the Department of Corrections doesn't operate efficiently when Major Anton Ugin is not
gone.
there.
I actually messaged him this morning, like, when are you coming back?
Did he respond?
No, no.
He's probably like, get out of my phone space.
Get out of my vacation. Okay, let's start with Joel Taposnia Santiago. He is being accused. He was pulled over, stolen vehicle. No, he did not have any. It says he was pulled over in a black Honda without any registration tags.
Okay.
Does that mean he didn't have a license plate?
No, the
No,
stickers.
just the little, like the blue sticker, the red sticker.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So the cop noticed that the car's going 30.
Yeah, no, you can see
That's why
that.
it's colored. That way they can just
Oh, okay,
color.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. But on Guam, there's a lot of cars that go around with no license plate.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. So.
Wait,
he
I
was-
have a question.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to legally have a front license plate? You are? Eric is saying yes. I'm not going to trust what Eric and Zach tell me anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they both told me that jiu-jitsu is the same as judo. I have been saying this for the last 3 freaking days.
I think you're supposed to have
A front license
front
plate.
and back. That's why they give you 2.
Oh, okay.
The sticker, they only give you 1 sticker
For the
because
back.
they ran out of money. So it's for the back.
Okay.
While speaking to the defendant, Officer Guardian observed a modified glass pipe next to the vehicle's shift knob. So the guy,
I believe that.
I believe it.
Yeah.
They tested it. It was presumptive positive for methamphetamine. And so when Officer Guardian checked under the hood of the vehicle, the VIN number, it was a stolen vehicle from May 29, 2023.
Oh, registered owner, your name is on here.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get your car back.
I'm pretty sure they called him to pick it up because GPD ain't gonna.
We should probably try to get a hold of this guy and let him know that, because, I don't believe.
No,
GPD.
he's gonna. It's already been how many days? You know the tires are gone. You know the hood is gone. The back wind, and it's a Honda Accord. So there is nothing left on that car.
I'm sure it will be impounded as evidence, though.
They do not impound things.
So if they find the drugs in the vehicle, they won't.
Yeah,
impound
wouldn't
it.
they need to
won't-
impound the car?
I think they would need to impound the car.
No, I don't
They
know.
don't?
They leave it there. Put them in the back of the car. It's
Son
not their
of a
problem.
gunna.
You know? I'm telling you, they're lazy. The report also indicates that the defendant told them he stole it a couple weeks ago and they've been using it. So, you know, you have the right to remain silent.
You have the right to remain silent.
So theft by receiving and possession of a pipe.
Joel J. Taposnia Santiago. I think he was
Yes.
born in 1980.
I don't know when he was born.
1989 or something like that. If I can
Yeah.
remember. The other magistrate, he was born in 1995.
Yes. Because I do know a Pedro Ada, but I checked the birth date and it's not him. So
Wrong Pedro. This was
Yes.
Pedro Ada the second.
yeah.
And this is the drugs and family violence one. Right?
Yes.
Can I just say that, like, honestly, guys, I don't know why anyone would continue to do drugs or commit crimes right now. Like, ever since January, when Doug Moylan became the AG, like, I'm scared to speed. Like, I don't, this guy is not screwing around. Like, you guys just need to stop. Like, if there was any reason to stop drugs, of course, do it for yourself. But if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it so you don't get like a 27-year sentence for having a modified glass pipe because Doug Moylan hates drugs.
Well-
yeah, you know, the first thing that jumped in my mind, Johnny, when you were going over that was, you know, with the guy being so cooperative, right? He can probably, you know, get his lawyer to say that, you know, plead him into, you know, being
Yeah.
cooperative.
Or in drug court or something like that.
Right, but with this being Doug,
Yes. Correct.
you just, you know, cooperating is, you know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a mission. You know?
Someone pled out, and I don't even think it was drugs. Remember, there was a plea agreement recently. The guy agreed to plead guilty, and the attorney general sent out this news release, and he was like, he can face up to 8 years in prison, and the attorney general's office is going to seek the maximum. And I was like, oh damn!
Even with a guilty plea.
Even with the guilty
Even with a
plea.
guilty plea,
Yes. I think he's just so over it.
He is.
So I got a message that asking if we can ask the Attorney General, instead of putting murderers up on billboards, to put the CSC guys, the criminal sexual
he
conduct
probably will.
faces.
Well, you can see those.
Oh
on
yeah,
the
yeah. We used to do a
registry.
show on that
Yeah.
in
No,
the
but those
afternoons.
billboards are like, wow,
Yeah, yeah,
this guy's not screwing. I want him to change it though, because that Tabata guy's been up for quite some time.
yeah.
You know, like I'm tired of seeing his face.
Yeah.
Like, put a new one up.
Pedro Ada II is being accused of family violence as a misdemeanor. And according to this magistrate's report, the neighbor was the one who called the cops.
Oh, good job,
because
neighbor.
she heard the screaming and the hitting and the
Break that culture of silence.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for calling the police.
Yeah.
The report indicates that during a pat-down of the defendant, the officers located a modified glass pipe with suspected meth in his shorts pocket. The defendant denied ownership, but claimed that he picked it up off the ground. Tell them Louis Holcook gave it to you.
I'm done with this show.
That's, right? Louis Holcook.
I'm done.
Like, that's not mine, that's Louis.
I just picked it off the ground. I didn't want to I didn't.
You know, I'm because of kids.
This island is so beautiful, officer. I didn't want it littered with glass pipes. So I was going to throw it away.
So Pedro Ada II was charged with possession and family violence.
Possession is the felony, right? But
Yeah.
family violence is the misdemeanor.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? We were having a discussion yesterday. Why are a lot of these family violence things misdemeanors?
Only misdemeanors.
And didn't the legislature, like during your time, like elevate something with family violence?
Gosh, I'm old already, Troy. That was a while ago. I know that we definitely took those things very seriously, and I know that
Yeah, I know you
early
guys
on Brant
passed a couple
McCready
of
was in
things.
office, and Brant was very
yes.
was very militant on enhancing
Yes, there were.
penalties. I was actually a big supporter of that as well, even though he was on the other party. I think that you know, stricter penalties are deterrents in and of themselves. But I'm not quite sure why that, you know, the family violence stuff is coming in just as misdemeanors. It should.
It should be more than that.
But I think they just have to follow whatever the
Guideline.
law says
Yeah.
as
Right.
like what you can charge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So what Johnny was saying yesterday, it really seems like these thresholds are kind of low. You know, like some of these things should be felonies.
Yeah.
You know, because misdemeanors, I think you only face like up to a year in prison at the max.
Yeah.
But with felonies, you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 years for something like that.
And usually these kind of, when you beat your other half, you tend to keep doing it. It's not,
Yeah, that return home
Yeah.
is like,
yeah.
Yeah.
especially
Yeah,
when kids are
sucks.
involved.
And drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, if ICE is gonna make you like this, you better quit.
The whole drug problem is just so. I mean,
Yeah.
it's become so common now that it's.
I think it was bad back then. It's just we didn't have social media. I think we've always had a drug problem, whatever the popular
From the
drug
90s
is.
forward,
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys, because I feel like I see, the people who are just totally like drugged out, like roaming the streets, how the randoms.
Yeah.
I see way more of those these days than before.
And we also
And
have
then-
to
and
take
then-
into account like
Yeah.
there's no respect. So a drug person would act not drugged out in front of their mom and dad. Now mom and dad and kids are doing it together.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I think that has a lot to do with, yeah.
And then I remember too, growing up, like if you wanted to go and look at the drug house, what everyone thought was a drug house, you had to there's probably like 3 on island to drive so far. Now you can just drive around the block and
Yeah.
you can probably find a drug, though,
Yeah.
that we think that's the drug
Yes.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
bad.
And you can tell right away. I mean, tinfoil on the louvers.
Saving that for later.
Bush cutting at 3 a.m. It's a story that I love, but I'm not going to say the village because it's going to get us in trouble. But there's a village on Guam.
There's 2
Where?
villages.
Oh, there's 2?
2 villages.
No, but this
not
one is
only
like-
bush cutting.
This-
Hey, what is that? What welding at 3
Oh
a.m.
gosh.
So.
Okay, I know which village you're talking about. But there's this village that on Guam payday, right? Guam, normally it's a Friday. Right? At least this was before. So it's a Friday and everyone gets their paycheck. Maybe you go home early, maybe you don't. It doesn't matter because the fun doesn't start until Saturday around 2:30, 3 a.m. You go to this village, roll down your windows, drive around 3 a.m. and all you're gonna hear is whirring of bush cutters because at every single house, at least one person is cutting the freaking yard at 3 in the morning. And if you ask any of them, first they might get all jumpy or try to bite their ear, right? You're looking at me in complete horror. They'll just say they're trying to beat the sun from coming up because it's too hot. No, you're high.
You got paid.
You got paid.
And so there's multiple households.
Every single house in the village. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's some of you probably know exactly what village I'm talking about. But take a stroll. Take a stroll on a Saturday following a Guam payday at 3 in the morning and roll down the windows and you'll hear it. When we come back, we'll get to the portion of the show where it's where we talk about what's going on in the community. Thank you so much, and stick with us. We'll be right back. We'll talk about tax refunds too.
Bottom line is we're gonna make you a better person. You're gonna be healthier and fitter than you were before.
Welcome back, guys. So for Tax year 2022 and prior error-free returns filed on or before June 30th, 2023. $2,444,000 was paid out.
So 825 individuals. So this is not including corporate tax refunds paid out. Individual tax refunds and refunds paid to date total 49,967. So we've been getting this. I think they make a weekly
90%.
payment, right? They make a weekly payment. You're familiar with budgeting and cash flow in the government. You're familiar with how quickly it went out last year, right? You remember that? Do you
Before election?
Before election,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Have you been observing a slowdown this year in comparison to last year?
To be honest, I haven't been tracking velocity as much. I definitely was when I was in office because we would get on the horn and be like, hey, you know.
Yeah.
But I haven't been tracking it lately. Have you guys noticed that? Is there?
I've noticed that there's been, it's like a spigot. You know, you just once a week you turn it very lightly. And I'm just wondering whether the administration's having cash flow issues. The other thing.
Well, we can talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing is that when they send these things out, people aren't actually getting their direct deposit for like 10 days.
More than that.
And
Yeah, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks.
So it's not, they get it faster through the mail, but the point is that even though they're saying that rev and tax processed, the check's not actually coming right away. And so what's up with that?
So they're announcing it on an accrual basis, not on a cash basis.
Okay.
Yeah, they're saying, okay, we paid it, but basically they're saying they paid it on the books, but they actually haven't cut the check yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you want to say about cash flow?
I mean, the difficulty of the cash flow situation, I thought that was self-evident when the administration opposed the legislature's attempts to get cash relief out to the people after the storm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I
when
mean-
Lester Carlson came in and said, we don't have enough for that.
Right.
Which was surprising because for the past year, it had been, we have a lot of money.
Right.
Plus they have the 200 plus million, right?
Yeah, they still have that.
They have the 200 plus million. But, giving them the benefit of the doubt, they want to use it as a down payment for a hospital.
I just saw a recent release on that about more land up in the back road to Anderson
Yeah,
area.
what is with back road? Like,
Manila,
why is-
they're identifying new Manila land. And
Further
they want to
up
buy
north.
it. They want to buy it now from Ancestral Lands Commission. I think they want to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Near Hawaiian Rock is
Near
where they
Hawaiian
want it.
Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even
So
further away.
maybe we just need to look what rich families bought lands all around there.
Right? Maybe this is
I
a
think-
land speculation.
I think this is something. This is yeah. But it's above my pay grade. So.
Like Oka has no cost associated with
Oh,
it,
there's
right?
too much junk there now.
Except for
Well, I
the
mean-
junk they put there.
Well, of course. but-
At the top of the hill of the tourism district.
Yep.
Like, why would you guys do that? Like,
No, but even passing by Teason, it's ridiculous.
I know.
You know, someone
Ugly.
raised a really great question to me because people just message me all the time, and she asked me. She said, "Why aren't they doing something with all that stuff? Because if another storm hits, that's all.
it's going to fly away.
Well,
gonna
not
go
just
into the
It's going to
school.
fly at something. It's going to cause damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know why they.
Oh, maybe they're just gonna put nets so that somebody can get the contract or the money to buy give the government nets.
What are they
That's
gonna,
the next
what,
project.
What are they going to anchor the net to it? Like the concrete block? Like from the,
I'm telling
Like
you.
tied to the refrigerator at the dump site.
yeah, they got to get rid of that stuff.
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
typhoon season is upon us. You know, and
We're expecting 5 more typhoons.
the weather folks said that there's more.
We have Landon Idlet coming in tomorrow to talk about what he released yesterday about over the next 2 weeks. They're going to be watching the systems closely because of a band of clouds and weather stretching throughout southern Micronesia all the way to the Marshall Islands. It results in that 91W, Invest 91W, which is already southwest of us, and then up that super typhoon that just veered north of Luzon in the Philippines. But yeah, he said we gotta look out for it.
I really don't want to talk about this typhoon because I would just been, I lost everything, right? Almost 2 years ago. So the little that I was able to build back, one bag had mold. And so, like, I'm like, you know, everything else I'm okay with, but just when I went into my closet and I pulled my bag out, there was mold on the line, and I'm like, you know, okay, God, you know, okay.
You go to FEMA?
No, it's an LV bag.
Yeah.
What am I gonna put on FEMA? Oh,
You should absolutely
forget it.
claim that.
Forget it. Forget it.
Oh my goodness.
God's just telling me something.
How did an LV bag mold? I thought they're not
It's
supposed
from
to
the
mold.
moisture. No, it's the moisture from the.
So not the leather, the inside.
Yeah.
The cloth
Yeah.
part. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just put Clorox. Happy birthday to Angelica Rosario Baza.
That is my sister, my baby sister. Happy birthday. Oh, wrong one.
Wrong picture.
Wrong picture.
That's the next
Ole.
one though.
Yeah. There is my
Angelica
baby sister.
Rosario Baza.
She is in Texas, or no, she's actually in Florida, taking her 12-year-old daughter on jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Is she 40?
She 81, 42.
Oh, 42. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah.
she's just
only
born
1 year, 1 year younger than me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. 1981. Happy birthday, Angelica. Oh, that's Eric's Malik.
yeah.
And happy birthday belated to my nephew Aiden. He's the kid in the middle. And today is his older brothers. They're twins. They're the boy on the left and the boy on the right, Blaze and Mason. And I actually don't know who is who. Because
Thanks, Uncle Troy.
yeah, I'm a sorry excuse for a family member. Wait, hold on.
But if it was twin dogs,
I
you
would
would definitely
absolutely
know which is which.
So the boy in the glasses is my nephew Darian. That's my sister Tiara's son. The
baby's Tyler's baby,
The birthday
right?
boys, yeah. The baby girl is Emma. That's my niece Tyler's daughter. That's my brother's granddaughter. And the three boys who have their birthdays, that's my brothers. Those are my brother's sons.
Happy birthday, boys.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Which one is the one that at your dad would watch?
Darian. That was my dad's favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all,
I heard him cuss a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he is my dad's grandson. we are related to my dad. And there are people who probably know my dad who are watching right now from church. Like, Tommy does not cuss. Yes, he does.
Like a sailor.
Yes, he did. Especially if he was checking math homework. Sorry to break it to you.
Oh, Cal Ripken.
Oh, we forgot how. Shoot, see, I always forget things.
Guys, Guam won against Nevada 6-5. And these are our boys.
And their coaches. I think
their coaches,
are in
yeah.
this photo as well.
I can't tell.
This is in Sacramento, California, proudly sporting the flag of Guam. Congratulations, kids. Young men.
So
Between the
these
ages
are
of
these
12
are
and
these are
15.
our Guam boys,
our
right?
Guam boys,
These are
yeah.
Guam boys.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine they came from a storm
Yeah.
Yeah.
and no water and no power,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no baseball field,
Oh,
and they went
yeah.
out there and they kicked butt.
And
Yep.
I don't
Look at
think
that.
they get much financial support.
They don't. They have to fundraise. They
Yeah.
have to fundraise. I supported a couple. Yeah.
I find
Kandit
that amazing
supported
because
some-
there's so many.
Yeah,
There's
that-
so much funding that goes to all of these really I'm just gonna say it, stupid things.
Shriners.
Huh?
Shriners, the Shriners scandal. Pockets
Oh
of-
my
pockets of the.
Stay tuned for our next story on that. But yeah, no, I'm talking about things that the legislature appropriates out of the tourist attraction fund. For all of these pet projects and special interests that really no one ever questions.
The Serena. Okay, the Serena.
What was-
pageant.
That's HRRA.
Yes.
Yes, there was a.
My favorite is that I can't get over is those village signs. Those are bought when I first came into the legislature in 2012.
Oh, the ones with the names
Right.
that are just unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable, falling apart. We bought those with bond money. And
Yes,
so we
I
didn't just
remember
pay
that.
with cash, but we're paying interest on it. Those cost us $75,000 a pop, all inclusive with the interest. And every time I see those, it just reminds me of how, we go out there and we spend on these things without thinking about, whether or not it's going to make sense. A lot of them are rusting out. The one in Tamuning's rusting out. Some of them have been hit by cars. And it's just, to your point, there's just so many different ways we can be investing the people's money for better outcomes. But these boys, I wanted to just really emphasize the fact that, when I see those kind of things, the resilience of our people and our ability to go out there and win in the worst of circumstances. You know, that's why if we just get things right on Guam, just the basics, our people will take care of excelling. They'll take care of the rest of it.
We can't even
just
open
need to
schools
give
on
them
time.
the basics. I know, you know, and that, you know, I was.
Oh, can we discuss that? How do you feel about all
Let
of
me
that?
tell you, that's why I'm a recovering politician. You know, because in one breath during the election, you know, here's the pay raise, you know, for educators, come and vote for me. And then the next breath, oh, the governor doesn't have any responsibility over education. You can't blame her for the schools
Yeah.
not being ready.
Yeah.
You know, and the reality is the governor sends down the budget for this government to include the Department of Education, and that budget should be inclusive of everything that you need to get everything up to speed.
And the governor can always choose to be involved as well. Like Eddie Cabo chose to be involved, not in curriculum or instruction or anything like that, but in supplies, equipment,
Right.
the cleanup of schools.
I don't think the board or the legislature will say, Governor, what are you doing trying to fix the school?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And so, you know, when I just watch all this unfold, and then you know, the whole trying to blame Senator Barnett for schools not being able to
You know,
open.
the guy just got into office in January.
Well, it's not even that, but what he's doing, and I really want Chris to hold the line. We got to hold the line at some point. But what he's doing is he's basically saying, you've
tying
been
their
putting this
hands.
off all these
Yeah.
years. We're not going to put it off anymore.
No.
And what the governor's office is saying is, oh, because you're not letting us put it off, we can't open. But what that basically means is they want to keep it broken.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, they want to keep it broken so things can keep going the way they have been. And if we're going to get better, it's going to be, I would rather we go through a hardship up front and
Yeah.
make it
I
better
agree.
than to keep pretending that it's working when it's not.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
This
stay
was a
the
long
course
time
on that, Chris. I mean, politics is tough, but you know, you gotta have that thick skin and just go with it. If
We're
it's
trying
good
to
for
get him on the
people,
show
go
to
with
talk
it.
about this whole schools thing.
Yeah.
We had Jesse Lujan on, and you know he didn't mince any words either. It's like it's a cluster F, is what he called it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and just on multiple levels, because not only do we have this inability to open right now, but we also still, don't forget, have $150+ million in COVID relief funding for school.
Oh, it's more.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
You're talking about the unobligated that
The-
we're going to lose.
Yeah, that we're
If
going to lose.
they're not obligated within
So
a
we
certain
don't.
period.
We not only have a whole system that's broken and can't open, but we have a whole ton of money that sat for so long and isn't going to.
Why aren't they spending that?
Somebody didn't get on it. You know. And again, that's an execution thing. We had the money, we just didn't get on it.
That's a DOE thing. Yeah.
Oh, so
It's a Gov Guam thing. You know. DOE was responsible, but everybody in leadership should have been on it.
Yeah,
You know.
I agree.
well, get on it.
As soon as they found out that there was a timeline, there should have been weekly meetings about the expenditure of that money.
You know, but nobody wants to say anything. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, no one wants to say that's a theme
It's the thing.
of our government. You have our delegate that doesn't want to answer questions.
No one wants to say anything about, doesn't want to answer questions about losing all that federal money going forward, and no one wants to answer questions about all the money we're going to lose that we already have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, wow.
Unfortunately, we're at that part of the show where we talk about people who have gone before us. There's a 5th year death anniversary for John Francis McDonald. He died 5 years ago on July 28. He was known as Big Mac. I love that. 1949, gosh, he was young when he died.
Yeah.
And there is a death of actually one of our
Longtime viewers.
Eileen Siloso's brother, Joseph Kinata Ugin.
Yeah.
He died earlier this month. He was born in 1953, also a young man. Our condolences to the families. I'm sorry? Oh, he died on Zach's birthday. Isaac Nirbalbul. He was born on July 16, 19-something. 19 what, Zach? Born in Saipan, right? It was redacted on your birth certificate. You were born in Saipan, right?
Yes.
Where in Saipan? Was it at the same place that CHCC is at?
No, it's where the college is.
It's where the college is now?
Torres Hospital.
There used to be a hospital there?
Called Dr. Torres Hospital.
Dr. Torres Hospital? Who was the Dr. Torres?
I think we went by there, right?
NMC. We always drive by
Yeah.
there from the airport, yeah. Or after Selina's house. Have you been to Saipan recently?
I haven't. I want to go. Saipan's always wonderful.
And Rhoda. You need to go to Rhoda.
I haven't been to Rhoda or Tinian.
It's Rhoda's so Tinian's beautiful too. Yes.
I
But
want
Rhoda's
to
just
ask you guys a
beautiful.
question real quick.
Yeah.
And it's a media question.
Okay.
So I remember when I was in office, right? Like for example, war claims. When we said war claims is going to pass.
Yeah.
And then there'd be all kinds of noise about it, and I would have to answer follow-up question after follow-up question, week after week or month after month on not just that subject but multiple subjects. I mean, there was a constant, almost nagging on where things were at and what was going to happen, and this website says it's not going to pass, and what do you have to say about that? I mean, there's a constant, and now there's no follow-up on anything. Like why are there so many issues and no one's asking the questions, or everyone just letting it all go?
There's no venue for it. So you provided a venue and an opportunity by having those
Open
discussions.
Yeah.
Like you would zoom in on with all of us. You would allow that to happen. Congressman Jim Moylan doesn't do that. He'll call the radio station every now and then when things start to get a little rough, he'll say he has to go.
He signs out.
Yeah.
So we have a chat. That chat is quiet.
Yeah.
It has not dinged.
Yeah. And of course,
Well, I mean, not
you
just-
had,
not just
you
the candidate
you
side, but
also
what about-
had your detractors, right? So when your detractors would, they're the ones who would follow everything that you do, everything that's happening in Congress. They know everything that's going on, so they know the questions to send to the reporters, to have the reporters ask. That's what I think was happening. It's not like they would send it to us. That's what I think was happening.
I also think that now that Jim's in, they don't have those people anymore because they're relieved, and
But if you have a situation now where something as big as this has caused even the governor and lieutenant governor, who've been friendly from the beginning of this term,
With
to
Jim.
Congressman Moylan,
Yeah, they got pictures and
basically
all.
saying like, "You're going under the bus, Jimmy," because we're going to tell people that we had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, but if our media just, I'm not just you guys, but I'm more so talking about other media. You guys broke the story, But I mean, if they just follow up on these things the same way, then I feel like these kind of things wouldn't be happening, because, when the politician feels like they can get away with it, then they're not gonna worry as much about doing it, And
I believe another station's going to be picking up this story.
You see how we FOIA WhatsApp messages from,
you can't FOIA a federal congressional office, no.
Not Congress.
Yeah, not Congress.
FOIA doesn't apply to Congress. I just learned that like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Sad.
oh wow,
Yeah. What's good for the
goose is not good
goose is not good
for the gander.
or whatever.
Yeah,
Am I saying that right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, anyway, I just want to thank you guys, as I always do, for
thank you.
taking those hard steps and asking those hard questions and putting yourselves out there, because in the end, things have become very consequential on this island. If you don't stroke the right feathers, it means no advertising, or people are scared to
Oh, we're
advertise
used to it.
because
What's
they don't
new?
want to get a phone call, or
What's new?
So you guys are always championing that cause, man.
And we have to thank our advertisers who
have
Stick around.
Yeah.
risked it.
Right.
They've risked it in order to
Yeah.
support us. And, I don't know if they endorse the things that we say and the stories that we put out. I don't know that we have that disclaimer that says that
They don't?
They don't necessarily, right? But they certainly have endorsed Kandit and our survival. And if it wasn't for advertisers, we wouldn't be here.
Well, thanks to them as well.
Yeah.
Cheers to.
Don't forget to eat your.
Cheers
oh,
to
you're
some-
almost
I'm
finished.
halfway done on my clam chowder.
Cheers.
At our 76. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Congressman San Nicolas,
Thank you, guys.
for joining us today and having this very long discussion with us.
Always fun.
I'm sure that a bunch of the politicals will be picking this apart. I'm sure they're going to be wondering, what is he doing here?
Always.
Yeah.
Running for something.
I'm so glad Johnnie joined us, because the last time I was here, you didn't make it. Johnnie makes it fun. Johnnie makes it fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially when
Thanks,
she starts
guys.
yelling.
No, but I do have choice words for Jim when I do meet up with him. I'll tell you that. I feel like I have a right because I voted for him.
I know. I
Right,
voted for
right.
him.
So I am going to say something when I see him face to face. I'm not going to say it on social media. But I promise I won't go to jail. Okay? I won't do anything that will cause me to go to jail. I promise. Okay, Cello? So I can be here for the shows.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, catch us tomorrow. Landon Idolet will be on the show 10 a.m. sharp. Right, guys? To talk about our weather and what's going on in Guam.
You guys have a wonderful day. God bless you all. Peace be with you.
Love you, Guam.
Ilinala Ipalawan, Sinyabula, Minaletnya, Agan Bravo, Itatataunya.
Yet cervical cancer continues to pose a constant risk to women today due to low awareness.
Cervical cancer pasiye masek lan matan sa kontilok niya. Fingom somono, pap smear and HPV vaccination isa na kashing tilok niya.
Dapat ko radil amla mugar. Ego mga laklangan radil. Nagtamare rin mo raw usong ala. Yang raw guru la. Ramak nitalak ta. Rektel umaralir.
Ang mga babaeng may edad 21 pataas ay kailangang magpapaptest kada 3 taon.
Sa dati na sontartua, lari sa kwano, anana token sila ng HPV.
Ewa fesin, todo kuwan foundation. Ato geriawak na test, may oposud, ewa semwet HPV. Eri fefire sa rifirifit, iya patufit singeryari pagi. Ikari ni sakaw, dari tentu wurud, nanabud, may apatsakurel fefin medicine. Kirisam.
Tampatilin cervical cancer arangan prevent na from notification moving yal mabigun kotaflaika cervical cancer.
Ara komin matan fokokos.
Be a well woman.
Mga pakla ba dingiyo?
Tufno kada pinipin ang raiwege da health rodat.
Piata liga lain.
Zangin megat itataunya.
Maging malusog po tayong mga kababaihan.
Kits vefi si puede peti veteresi Torres awal geriri sits puede papatsakut. Take the first step to becoming a well woman and call Todu Guam Clinic today at 671-649-TODU to schedule an appointment.
Feel that this environment is for anybody that wants to try something new. Whether it is CrossFit or powerlifting, we offer a safe space for someone who's never been athletically inclined to try something that they've never done before.